Thank you for joining us here at Beadaholique. This is Julie, and today I'm going to teach you how to make Scrabble tile pendants. Here are a few examples of some pendants which have yet to put their bail on, but you can see that there's a wide array of choices you have in terms of your image and graphics. A few of these use transfers, others use collage images, and here is a completed one with a little bail attached to the back. So to begin with, we're going to need to gather our supplies. Here at Beadaholique, we sell these great 1-inch square wood blanks. You can tell that they're a little bit larger than a Scrabble tile, which I actually like because it gives me more room to see my design and for embellishments. But if you have Scrabble tiles on hand, feel free to use them. They work great too. You're going to need a white glue. I'm using Nunn design glue, but any white craft glue is going to do. And you're going to need some Mod Podge as well, and a pair of scissors, and that's all you're going to need at this point as we prepare to get our images onto our tiles. If you're using an inkjet printer, just be aware that the ink can bleed, so it's best to use a laser printer. You can usually go down to your neighborhood office supply store and they'll print you a sheet of images for around 50 cents a copy, and that's always a good way to get a very crisp image that won't bleed. Once you've chosen your image, cut it out. Now what I like to recommend is if you have an image which is exactly the size of your Scrabble tile pendant or your wood blank, go ahead and you can cut it out on the lines that you have distinguishing the edges. Now if you have an image such as this, which is a little bit larger than my tile, I do not recommend tracing it, and now I'm going to show you an example of why. If you look closely on this pendant right here, you can see that what I did is I traced out my image and then I cut around the trace marks. I kept cutting a little bit closer and a little bit closer until I thought it fit my pendant. And now what happened though was I cut a little too far in, and now I have this little line which shows the wood along the edges of my tile. And that's why I recommend that unless you have your computer and you've shrunken your image to exactly 1 inch and you know it's precise, I recommend you cutting out your image a little bit larger than what your pendant is. So you've cut your image and it's larger than the tile itself, which is what you want at this point. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut a straight edge around the top or one side, wherever you want to line up your pendant. So like I know that I want that cat's head to be in the center of my tile, so I cut a straight edge along the top. Now what I'm going to do to apply my glue, you can use a craft paintbrush if you want. I actually prefer to use my fingers. I find that I get a much smoother appearance and I don't have to worry about any of the bristles coming off and getting into my paper and wood. So I just take my finger, put a little glob of glue on it, and then what I'm going to do, I almost caught myself there, I almost put the glue on the tile, and I'm going to show you in a moment why you don't want to do that. You want to go ahead and put the glue right on your image, and go ahead and put a good amount and just smooth it out. You want to make sure that when you do place your tile onto this image, that every corner of it is going to be covered in glue. So I can kind of see through my image at this point, and I can see that I want it where the cat's head is. Okay, so now I'm lining it up with that straight edge. I'm turning it over, and I can kind of bend it a little bit right now and see if I have that placed where I want. The beauty of white glue is that you actually have some wiggle room. Look, I can actually still move this around. And then when I'm happy with the placement, I'm just going to press it into place. All right, and I'm going to flip that over and let that dry. Okay, so why didn't I put the glue right on the tile pendant? Well, the reason is because the wood tends to absorb the glue faster than the paper, and what will happen is something like this might occur. So I put the glue onto the wood, and then I put the image onto the glued wood, and part of my glue had already dried, so my image is not already secured down. Now if that does happen, you can just go back and apply some more glue. So your image is not wasted, but it's an extra step, and you do run the risk of the paper coming off of the pendant. So here I have an image which is already dried. You can see it's fully attached to every side. And I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and cut right along the edge. Nice straight cut. My image is now fully adhered to my tile pendant, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to coat it with Mod Podge. Now I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the glue. I'm just going to use my fingers. Squeeze out a little bit of Mod Podge. I'm just going to take my finger, dip it into the Mod Podge, and then I'm going to coat the top of the image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I coat along the edges. You want to make sure that those are sealed properly. And then I'm just going to let that dry. Now you might be wondering, why don't we just use Mod Podge for the bottom coat and the top coat? Why do we have to use white glue and then Mod Podge? Well, we thought we could just use Mod Podge as well, and we experimented with it. And what we found is the Mod Podge dries a lot quicker than the white glue, so there wasn't that wiggle room to position your image on the tile, so it wouldn't slide. And so I really prefer to use the white glue. That way I can have a little bit more time to play with my image, make sure I get it right where I want it, and then allow it to dry. So you could technically use Mod Podge for the base as well as the top coat, but I do find it's a lot easier to use a white glue for the bottom and a Mod Podge for the top. Now that we've coated our images in a protective layer of Mod Podge and it has dried, what we're going to want to do is we want to get that really cool glass-like domed appearance. And there's going to be two ways we can go about doing this. We can use a product such as Gel du Soleil, which is a 1-part resin, or we can use a product such as ice resin, which is a 2-part resin. So to begin with, I want to show you how to do Gel du Soleil. And I'm going to use a small bottle here. So Gel du Soleil you can buy in the large bottle, which is great. It gives you a lot of product to work with, and it has a convenient flip top. But for making Scrabble tile pendants, I really like the applicator tip that is in the smaller bottle. And this tip actually can just pop off and you can refill this bottle. So that's one little tip. You don't have to do it this way, but I do find it a lot easier. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put some Gel du Soleil in the middle of your pendant. And I'm just going to put a bunch of drops. Gel du Soleil is a resin which cures in UV. Now UV of course comes from the sun, which is great. If you're in a sunny climate, you can go ahead and just put your pieces out on a windowsill. If you're not in a sunny climate, what you're going to want to do is purchase a UV lamp. And that's something that is very similar to what is at the nail salon, where you put your manicure under to dry. And with the UV lamp, the Gel du Soleil will cure in 15 minutes, which is really fast. It's a lot quicker, of course, than like a 2-part resin. You'll notice I'm doing my drops towards the middle. So what I'm going to do, once I have quite a few drops, is I'm going to actually want to take my applicator tip and, starting from the middle, push my resin to the side. I'm just going very slow, just working every angle. Now Gel du Soleil will not cure without UV. I lived in Seattle for quite a while and I learned that lesson the hard way after 5 days, and my resin was still just as liquid as when I started. The surface tension is keeping the resin in place so it's not spilling over to the sides, but you will still want to be careful. Now what I want to do is, since I'm not going to put this in the sunshine, I'm actually going to put it in my UV lamp. I'm going to take a Post-it, fold the Post-it in half so the sticky side came back onto itself. And then what I want to do is very carefully slide the Post-it under my tile, use that as a little tray, and then I'm going to put my tile in my UV lamp. If you'd rather use a 2-part resin instead of Gel du Soleil to finish off your Scrabble-like tile pendants, is really quite simple. You go ahead and you mix up a batch of your 2-part resin, part A, and the hardener, and you let it set up for about 5 minutes to try to let any of the air bubbles escape naturally. You're not going to pour your resin. What you're going to do is you're going to load some onto your stir stick and place a dab in the middle. And what you're going to do is you're going to keep doing that for probably 3-4 times. Just keep going from the center. You don't want to put any on the edges at this point. after about 4 drops, you're going to use your stick and start pushing the resin out towards the edges. You're going to wait about 5 minutes, and then what you're going to do is you are going to come back with a heat source, such as a torch, and quickly go over it just to remove any air bubbles. And then you're going to let that cure for 3 days. It's been a couple days and our resin has now dried, so we're ready to finish our tile pendants. Before we choose our bail, I want to show you a quick tip when you're using the Gel du Soleil. This actually happened after we stopped the cameras, and I want to show you, if you can see, there's a little bit of a variation in height on the Gel du Soleil. Now what happened is when I put my piece onto my little paper tray and I put it into the UV lamp, there was a little bit of a curve to the paper. I noticed this within just a minute or two, but the UV had already started to set up the resin, so it actually dried a little bit uneven. So that's just a little troubleshooting tip. You just want to make sure that whatever you put under your tile to put into the UV lamp is completely flat. This is still a completely serviceable piece. It looks great, but it is just a little bit uneven. Just take note of that and be cautious of it when using the Gel du Soleil. I've pulled a selection of en raku pendant bails. With this finished tile pendant I have here, I've adhered a heart-shaped one. The most common shape you're going to see is this little leaf, and it comes in 3 different sizes. I'm going to hold it in comparison to both the wood tile that we carry here at Beadaholique and a traditional Scrabble tile. So we have small, medium, and large. You can just decide which one you prefer aesthetically. Here's a medium one. You can see how that lays against the wood. I usually go with the medium size. If you want, you can do a small one. Or you could go for the large. Personal preference, do keep in mind though what you're going to be putting through this hoop in terms of the size of your chain. If you're going to put a really thick chain, you are going to want to go with one of the larger sizes. If you have a really petite chain, I'm going to be using a ball chain here in a little bit, then I would go with like a smaller medium, but totally up to you. You can also choose an en raku bail with a Celtic design, a heart shape. There's a whole wealth of shapes that you can choose from. Also between silver and gold you can choose as well. I also want to show you an earring bail. This will work great with one of the wood tiles that we sell here at Beadaholique. It's very nice and flush. One quick note though, if you are doing it with a traditional Scrabble tile, the depth is a little bit off, so you'll want to keep that in mind. Also note with the earring bails, the orientation of the little hoop is going to be different than the orientation of a pendant bail. So I'm going to take one of the tile pendants that we made, and I'm going to put a heart bail onto it. Really quite simple. I just have a piece of wire to use as an applicator. You could also use a toothpick. And I have some E6000 glue. Just going to use my applicator. Spread a little bit of glue on the bail. Line it up so that the orientation is with the top of the pendant. And press into place. If a little bit of glue comes out the edges, I just take my fingernail and scrape it away. I'm going to let that dry for at least an hour, and then I'm going to attach my chain. Usually with Scrabble tile pendants, you see a ball chain, which I think works very nicely with it. You can purchase a pre-made ball chain, which actually has the little connector clasp attached to it. You can also purchase ball chain by the foot. I've purchased 2 feet and I've cut it to 16 inches, and then you can purchase the little connector clasps. This is a stainless steel ball chain. To attach the clasp, you just put one end into that middle area, pull it to the side, and do the same with the other, and that creates a necklace. So if you want to just string it through, I'm going to string it through my little mermaid pendant. And there you go. You have a wood Scrabble-like tile pendant.